Hi, gang. It's Patrick.
And JT.
Coming up on today's episode, we're enchanted to talk Tiki with special guest Ken Bruce, author of the book Before the Birds Sang Words. As always, we discuss the latest Disney news, and we close out the show with some quick D. All that and more on today's episode of Gays Do the D.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
JT, Dole, whips, and chains excite me. Landry.
Oh, that's so good. Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
All the birds sing words and the flowers bloom in the tiki, 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 tiki room. Kazuki.
Oh, I got serenaded. I'm feeling it.
You did.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Let's just we have quite an episode ahead of us.
It is a humdinger.
It is a humdinger
of an episode.
It really is. It really is. We have a lot to get through. I have been excited about this episode for a while. Once we sort of landed our interviewee.
Oh my gosh, yes.
We ordered this book weeks and weeks ago and plowed through it, and now today we have Ken Bruce on the episode with us for
the author himself.
The author himself for, I would say, an incredible. I had so much fun interview.
Oh yeah. I mean, you and I talked about this, but like we could have sat there and talked with him for hours.
For hours and hours, absolutely. Yeah. We kept him way too long and yet not long enough, and that's just how we like an interview to go, right?
We'll keep him leaving one. Like leave. Wait, what? I can't even talk. What is it?
We're so excited about
Patrick.
it.
It's been a long week. I'm so excited. Leave him wanting more.
There it is.
That's it. That's it. I found it.
Well, so let's just jump into the rest of the episode, because really we're saving dessert until the end, but we're going to plow through the rest of it, aren't we?
We are. Yeah, we always yes, we're going to plow through it like we always do. Well, actually, we never plow through it. We always very much like Yeah, no, we never.
We have all the words. We have all the words.
All the words.
Speaking of, however are you, my friend JT?
Oh, Patrick, it's Friday night.
And I'm feeling right.
No, it's been a very long week. It has been a very stressful week. Much like January and February, really said you're gonna feel every one of our days.
Yeah.
March is competing.
It really is.
March is in stiff competition. But you know what? It's Friday night. The week's over.
Yeah.
This too shall pass. We're gonna make it.
It shall.
How are you, Patrick?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Agreed. Things are this first 3 months of the year so far have been doozies. I'm not going to say they've been like terrible or bad. They've just been a lot. It's just been I haven't not a lot of like sparks and joyful moments, but enough to get me by.
What a Q1.
What a Q1 we're having here on Gays Do the D.
Yes.
But things like this interview, this episode come up, and things are right again.
I mean, just reading this book and doing and just being able to chat with Ken about it was such a bright spot.
Yeah, agreed.
We had our own little tropical hideaway.
We did. We really did. It was like we were at Trader Sam's all together.
Yes, yeah,
it was great.
Yeah.
It was great. Well, speaking of being in our feelings, Inside Out 2 dropped a new trailer. What do you think? Thoughts about that?
I mean, I just got even more excited for Inside Out 2 than I already was, I think.
Wow.
I know. Normally Pixar trailers are always kind of like a it's like if you ever used to watch Mad Men and you would see like the previews to the episodes were so cryptic and you didn't really know like, what it was about or what was going to happen. But I don't know. I liked the trailer. I think it was. Okay. I'm super excited. What did you think?
I liked the trailer as well. I mean, they always do such great trailers. It's so great in that they trick me often into being like, oh, this is going to be a great movie, and then I don't love it so much, or the other way around. You never know.
Of course, yeah.
I will say the first trailer got me more excited than the second trailer.
Okay.
I think I'm what's the word? I'm hesitant about the amount of new characters they're bringing in.
Oh, interesting.
For Inside
That's
Out
fair.
2.
That is fair. That's fair.
Do you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
when they first, like when we realized, oh my gosh, anxiety is going to be the new emotion. Boy, did my like anxiety bubble up in a great way of like,
Yes.
wow, am I going to be seen on screen? Like,
Is this movie about
my feelings? 100%. And then when they brought in all the other ones, I think they're going to be funny and great. And I'm sure, I'm hopeful. I'm not sure. I'm hopeful they're going to do a wonderful job with all of them. But it's a lot. It's a lot of characters to keep track of.
It is. I will give you that. It is. But I'm like you. I'm hopeful that they know what they're doing. And Inside Out is such a beloved property. I feel like they're not going to want to. They're taking every precaution to not mess this up.
I would, here's hoping,
Yeah.
Here's hoping.
Yeah. But speaking of movies, Patrick, I have to backtrack a little bit because, the last episode, you and Ryan gave your top 5, your Fab 5 Disney Oscar picks, right?
Mm-hmm, we did.
And yes. And I love that episode. I love that topic because I'm a huge Oscar junkie. I have to ask you, because I'm going to flip the coin on you.
Oh.
Do you have any top picks for nominations or wins that you wish had happened but did not?
Oh, in the past, you mean?
In the past, yes.
Okay. I mean, I guess I'm a little confused this year specifically why Wish didn't really get nominated for anything, did it? I can't remember. I don't think it got nominated. Yeah. Which confuses me.
Left at home while everyone else went to the ball.
Right. I know that it was, people were kind of torn on the movie, whether or not they liked the storyline or whatever. But I feel like animation wise and music wise, I don't see how you can say that it wasn't amazing. You know what I mean? I know that's my opinion, so I guess I can't see how you can say that, but
it is wild that out of 5 spots for animated film, Wish was not in there.
Yeah, it's kind of it's baffling to me. But what a great question. I'm trying to go back in time and what should have won something that didn't win something or was not even nominated. Well, I'll flip it to you while I think on this. Did you have any that you're like, oh my goodness?
A couple, I think. Like I think it would have been so incredible when Beauty and the Beast was nominated for Best Picture. If it could have won Best Picture.
Sure.
I mean, that was such a historic moment for an animated film to that was the first one to even get a Best Picture nomination.
Yeah.
And I feel like, if it was ever going to happen, that would have been the year it would have happened, just because that Beauty and the Beast was kind of like the critical, in terms of like critical success, that was kind of like the zenith.
Yeah.
You know, and so I feel like if it was going to happen, it would have happened then. And I don't even remember. Oh, Silence of the Lambs won that year.
You're right. Yes. Which, I mean, okay.
Yeah. But I think it would have just been so cool to see that happen. And then there's been a couple of like, it's a shame like voice acting. There's not a voice acting category. Because I think there's been any number of like Disney voice performances that I think could have like won a voice acting Oscar.
Sure.
And then I think it would have been cool to, I think Mary Poppins should have won Best Picture the year it was nominated. My Fair Lady beat it out, but I think ultimately Mary Poppins is a better movie as a whole.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I feel like more recently, and I'm kind of surprised. I was actually just looking it up as you were speaking. I was listening as well. I promise you. But I
tell the truth.
Was surprised the year Enchanted came out that Amy Adams wasn't nominated for Best Actress, because I felt like she really and truly did such a great job in that movie. It was such an interesting performance that I thought it deserved at least a nomination. I don't see how she could have won, probably, but a
nomination for sure. And I mean, she's been nominated 6 times, so it's not like they're afraid to nominate Amy Adams for an Oscar.
Agreed.
No, I totally agree. I think that would have been an amazing nomination for sure.
Yeah. Any favorite nominations since we're just talking about it? We'll move on.
I mean, nominations or wins?
Or wins. Sorry, wins.
I mean, I think my all-time favorite Disney Oscar, well, I have 2. One would be Julie Andrews winning Best Actress for Mary Poppins, and just the whole story behind that of like being dumped for My Fair Lady, and then in the same year winning for Mary Poppins. And then I think just to me, like Beauty and the Beast winning Best Song is just, I mean, that's just, for me, that was just like, I mean, I think that's like the pinnacle of like contemporary Disney music. And so,
right. Yeah.
I think for me, yeah, but I did love your Sooner or Later pick from Dick Tracy.
I thought you might.
Yeah, no, I love that because that's a little bit of like a deep cut in terms of like Disney. And I know that performance that you talked about where she was doing the whole Marilyn thing. It's so good.
It's a moment. Yeah.
And I just love that Stephen Sondheim won his Oscar for like what is basically a Disney film.
Isn't that so weird?
It's so bizarre. It's so weird. Yeah.
The world is great, isn't it?
Yes, it really is. It's in times like that I'm like, you know what? Maybe we're going to be okay.
If Stephen Sondheim can win an Academy Award for Dick Tracy, anything is possible.
Anything is possible. And I also agree with you. Her performance in that movie is incredible. And if you have not ever watched Dick Tracy or that movie, it's really, really good. And you're missing out.
It's one of those movies for me that I can put it on anytime and I will sit down and watch it, like beginning to end.
But one last thing, can I tell you what might be a little bit of a hot take?
Oh, please do.
Sooner or Later is not my favorite song from Dick Tracy.
Yeah, that's fair. Which one is yours? I mean, it's a great song, but is it more? Give me more.
No, I love that one. It's actually "What Can You Lose" that Mandy Patinkin sings to, and there's actually they do a little duet of it, if I remember correctly, in the movie.
They do.
And then he's on the soundtracks. I guess they both are on the soundtrack, but that is my favorite song from Dick Tracy.
He's in his like head voice and his falsetto. It's really beautiful.
He's in that Sondheim falsetto that he does. Mm-hmm, he's in his Sunday in the Park with George voice.
He really is. He really is. Tweedles, I have to give you a little background information. Right before we hit record, JT and I were like, we're going to make this quick because we have a long interview to get through. And here we are. We're 12 minutes into the episode and we have
so many more chances to make this quick.
It's true.
You know what? We should just go right. You know what, though? We have a new Patreon member and we should talk about this person right now.
Oh, my stars. Please do.
Because we have a new Patreon member, and Patrick, I don't know if this is you or not, but this is Patrick. Patrick, are you your own Patreon? I have Patrick.
I'm not. I do not donate to our own show, strangely enough. But we do have another Patrick. There's World is big enough for two Patricks, apparently, and the Gaze to the D family. I'm into it. Thank you, Patrick, for... Yes. I'm looking at myself on Zoom right now. Thank you, Patrick, for donating and being a part of our family. I love when our family grows like that.
I do, too.
On the Patreon page.
And how appropriate that it's before St. Patrick's Day.
The stars are aligned. Look at that.
Right?
Look at that.
Do you think
Look what Mickey can do.
Do you think Patrick has been waiting for a long time to become a Patreon? And
he's like, when am I going to put it in just in the right moment? That
just like Taylor Swift, when would it line up perfectly to do this?
Well done,
yes,
Patrick.
Well done.
I see you clever Patrick, clever girl.
And anybody can become a Patreon, Patrick.
It's true. How can they do so, JT?
Well, Patrick, they can go to our website.
Are you talking to me or to our new Patreon member, Patrick?
Well, he's already done it, so I mean...
We're off the rails tonight.
Yeah, we are. They can go to gazetothed.com, click on donate, and become a Patreon member. And you know what? No amount is too small, and guess what? No amount is too big.
It really and truly,
I mean...
that's enough said. Enough
right
said there.
Yeah, go big and come home. I don't know. I don't even know what I'm trying to say.
Go big and go home.
Go big and go home, or go small and go home.
Oh dear. Oh my stars. Yes, you too can become a Patreon member, and you will get extra perks. For instance, we are having our March happiest hour on Zoom this March. What is it? The 16th, I believe, the day before St. Patrick's Day.
Yes, the day before St. Patrick's Day. Wear your green. If you're joining, wear your green.
You got to be seen in green,
Yeah.
Please join us.
It's easy being green on the happiest hour on Zoom.
It is easy being green on the happiest hour on Zoom. Please join us if you are indeed a Patreon member. It is a Patreon member event exclusively, so you do need to be a member to join. You should already have your Zoom invite, and I'll put it on the Patreon page as well. And hopefully, if all goes well, you and I will be recording a new episode of Raw and Uncut right after this, and dropping that this week as well. The gifts just keep on giving here at Gaze Do the D.
And if you don't become a Patreon, you can't sit with us.
You can't sit with us. It's very true. So thank you, Patrick, and to all of our Patreon members. Yes. We adore you. We love you. We can't wait to see you on Zoom this March 16th.
And you know what else we adore, Patrick?
Please tell me.
Celebrating.
Oh, I love it. I'm celebrating. Do you want me to kick it off, or do you want to get into it?
Why don't you kick it off?
Let's do it. So we have at and evens RX feeling more and more optimistic about a new man I've been seeing about 2 months. I like it. 2 months is that? It's that pivotal period. Of like,
yeah.
Will they? Won't they?
Have you had the DTR yet? That's what we want to know. Patrick, you have this look of confusion. Like,
my mind, I thought you were going to say something else, and then you didn't, and I was like, okay, great.
I think I know where you were going. You know what I mean by DTR, right? For our Tweedles that don't know what that stands for, including apparently Patrick, that is the define the relationship talk.
No, I do know what it is, but I'm just laughing at what I thought you were going to say.
Oh, yes, and I know what you thought I was going to say.
Yes. Pull it together, everybody.
No, curious if you've had the DTR. Curious, where did you meet?
Yeah. So many questions.
Yeah. What was your first date?
Follow up, won't you, in our next episode?
I mean, haven't we learned by now that we like follow up, we like details, we like a story?
We do.
Anyway, yes. At just.in.time_for_Disney, which would just be just in time for Disney. Unpacking. Are you unpacking on a trip? Are you unpacking your emotional baggage? Are you
Your
unpacking
feelings?
in your new home? What are you doing?
Yeah. Unpack your sentences for us a little bit
unpack
more.
your sentence. That's what you need to unpack.
I like it. I'm sort of into the one-word response, though. I'm into that. Maybe that's our goal for next time. Everyone just give us one word, and we'll figure out what you mean by it.
I mean, Patrick, that should probably be our goal for recording.
One word.
Just one word.
Well, there are many words to describe one of our favorite Tweedles, Hibdande.
Yes, Hibdande.
Celebrating planning a trip to Pride Night at Disneyland and getting my ears pierced. Well. We'll need photos immediately.
Yes. Are they studs? Are they hoops? Actually, I have seen them. I know they are studs.
Oh, very fitting.
Yeah, very fitting. I show a little shout out to Hibdande. I've gotten to see Hibdande on multiple occasions, and he's actually met some of my friends at this point.
Oh, my stars!
Just because he'll be out and I'll be out with people, and we'll just hang out, and everyone adores Hibdande, I should say.
Of course,
that meets him. So, shout out to him. _V Shanam or Shanam.
VS Hannum.
V.S. Hannum. I had it wrong on all 4 original tries.
You did.
It's finally March.
It is finally March. And I know that this is actually Vincent, who was a guest on our episode of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
And I shouted March because it's in all caps.
It is in all caps. I wrote it as it was written.
And hello again, Vincent.
Hopefully you're having a good March. If you listen to the first part of this episode, we are not having the best March, but we're going to march forward. March forward.
Yes, we are.
Thank you so much. Towards at Kenny.cafe, celebrating my boyfriend's first Disney trip, heading to the parks on Friday. So already there because we're recording this on Friday.
Yes, and he sent us a photo. He's repping in the parks with his GDTD pin on his bag.
Well done, sir.
Well done. At ADV Parker, finishing a short film I'll be premiering at an environmental conference this month. Okay, come on, an inconvenient truth.
You better sit in that inconvenient truth.
They could put this in at upstairs at the Land. Just put out that symbiosis thing and put this in.
I like it. I'm into it. Moving on, we have at Chris Derby, CHRSDRBY, celebrating less than 60 days until our WDW trip in May. Very exciting.
May's such a good time to go.
It really is.
Flower and Garden.
Love it.
At TMH 2399, who I know is Tori. Spring flowers.
Oh my goodness! Already,
they're blooming down here in Nashville.
Oh, I suppose I'm in Minnesota where things are frozen forever. Mm-hmm.
The stinky trees are beautiful and blooming. No, we have these white. They're Bradford pears, and they are some of those gorgeous trees. They're these white blooms, and they're pear shaped because they're Bradford pears. But they are the foulest smelling trees you've ever smelled.
I've heard tell of these trees.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Moving on, we have at Silent Tommy celebrating my work wife and I finally having the same schedule. Oh, I love that.
So good to get on the same cycle.
It is indeed.
Last but certainly not least, we have at Chris. Hey, GDTD gang, I'm coming in with the details of my celebration this week as a regular listener and new commenter, longtime listener, first-time caller.
I love it.
I know how important the details are. It's now less than 60 days until my WDW trip from the UK with my husband and our two best friends. Dining reservations are made, including Tiffin's, applause, and the boathouse in Disney Springs, applause.
Delicious.
But even more exciting is that we booked the Wild Africa Trek in Animal Kingdom. Would love to know if any of you have done it. I have not. Have you, Patrick?
I haven't done that one in Animal Kingdom. I have done the Up Close with Rhinos tour, which I highly recommend. When I did it, it was like $50 maybe to do this rhino tour, which, I mean, my opinion is cheaper than I was willing to pay to be up close with rhinos. You know,
Yeah.
I got you, Disney. I got you
yeah.
on that one. So I do recommend that. But that being said, I imagine the Wild Africa Trek is going to be 1,000 times
I'm
more
sure.
exciting than this. Yeah.
I mean, I have done the Drink Around the World, which turns into the Wild Epcot Trek.
Yes,
But
yes.
I have not done the Wild Africa Trek.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, let us know
Yes,
all about your
please.
adventures there. We want to
Would
know
love
what
that.
you think of it. Send us some photos if you're able to take photos. I know sometimes they don't let you, but let us know.
And listen, meet up at Chris Derby because it looks like your trips are both around the same
they
time.
they may align.
Yeah.
Two Tweedles meeting in
the
night.
wild.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know either. Oh, no.
Well, thank you, Tweedles, for sending us your celebrations. You know how much we love to celebrate your lives. Moving on, we have some listener feedback, JT, from our last episode.
Amazing.
Our first one is at Denko Direct, who is a longtime Patreon member of ours. So thank you so much for being part of our family
And
for
a
such
long-time
long
caller.
time. Long-time caller. That's right. Absolutely. So Denko says, in response to our Fab 5 Disney Academy Award wins, Denko says, top 5 Disney Oscar wins for me are 1, Beauty and the Beast Best Score. Number 2, Ratatouille, Best Animated Feature. Number 3, Up, Best Animated Feature. Number 4, Inside Out, you guessed it, Best Animated Feature. And number 5, Zootopia, ding, 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 Best Animated Feature.
Incredible choices.
Great choices all
Great
around,
choices.
yeah.
I forgot about Ratatouille, and that actually makes me realize another win I wish it happened that didn't is Ratatouille's score for best score, because that is my all-time favorite Pixar score. It's so beautiful.
It is lovely, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Great choices, Danko Direct.
Great choices.
We have some more listener feedback from that episode from at AxioPixie319. Thank you for another wonderful episode. I loved all of your picks, but especially Ruth Carter winning for her beyond stunning work on Black Panther. And extra thank you for introducing Intrusi into my vernacular. Now I know what to call those images of Michael B. Jordan in the man cardigan that consistently float into my head.
I
think they float into our heads too, pretty on a
really
pretty
and
consistent
truly
basis.
I don't think that's an intrusive. I think that's like an
No,
inclusive.
that's
Like
a welcome
included.
see. Yeah, that's inclusive.
That's right. It's
Yeah.
a welcome. Yeah, a welcome
Yeah.
see.
That's a welcome see.
Intrusives and welksies. I like
Yes, I love it.
it. Amazing. Well, thank you for sending in that feedback. Keep it coming. We love hearing from you. Moving on, JT, we're zipping along.
We are
to this
zipping
week.
along.
We sure are. This week in Disney history. Let's not ruin it. JT, are you ready?
I felt like it was a personal attack, but let's go.
Yep, it was, absolutely. You should feel that way because it was.
Well, hey, okay.
All right. So 113 years ago, JT, on March 12th, 1911.
My birthday.
That's right. Animator, special effects artist, and animation director Joshua Mador was born in Greenwood, Mississippi. Mador's credits for Disney include Snow White, Pinocchio, Fantasia, The Reluctant Dragon, Dumbo, Bambi, Peter Pan, Cinderella, and Mary Poppins, just to name a few. Mador also received an Academy Award for special effects for this 1954 Disney movie. Do you know what that movie was?
Was it 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea?
Ding, ding, ding. It was very appropriate, I feel, for this episode because we chat about it a little bit. It's in the book that we're going to talk about. Yep.
Is he related to Tow Mater?
Possibly.
Okay.
So, interestingly, though, Mador has been noted as one of the 5 most notable effects animators in history, not just in Disney, but all around. In addition to working for Disney, his oil paintings of California have won many awards, some of which were included in Walt Disney's personal collection.
Oh, wow.
I know. They're stunning. You should go online and look up Joshua Mador's oil paintings, and they're really beautiful. A little dark and beautiful. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Come on, darkness.
Come on, darkness.
Moving on to the last piece of This Week in Disney History, March 11th, 1950, 74 years ago, JT, composer, arranger, and conductor Bruce Healey was born in St. Louis, Missouri. Healey's first job with Disney was in high school as a drummer in the marching band at Disneyland for the Christmas parade. He would go on to write and arrange music for Disney Parks attractions like One Man's Dream and this show, which is featured in both Disney World and Disneyland. Do you know what that show might be?
What year was he born?
He was born in 1950.
Okay. And he wrote for One Man's Dream.
Mm-hmm. Among other attractions.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And another show that's in both Disneyland and Disney World.
Correct.
Currently?
Yes.
Okay. Was it, let's see, I know Jerry Goldsmith wrote Soarin'.
Mm-hmm. 10 hours later.
Ooh, this is a tough one.
Should I hum a few bars?
Oh, can you?
Sure. Oh, how dare you? Of course you can. So imagine a character waving their arms like a conductor, and you're hearing da 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 da.
PhilharMagic? No.
Wow.
Wait.
I failed us.
Oh. A conductor waving his hands.
Well, I mean, he waves them like it's a very specific dance that this character does that people do on TikTok a lot and on the YouTubes.
Really?
On top of a mountain.
On top of a mountain?
Yes. You're going to hit yourself.
Oh my gosh.
With so much force.
On top of a mountain.
In one of the parks.
In one of the parks. Mm-hmm. But you said it's in both Disneyland and Walt Disney World.
Correct. Yeah. So in one of those two locations, there is a mountain, and when one, there is not one.
Oh, wait. Oh my God. I'm gonna kick myself for not getting what. Just tell me what it is.
Mickey Mouse is the star of this show.
Is it Mickey Mouse's Runaway Railway?
I am.
Oh my God. Wait.
I'm going to jump through the Zoom.
Oh my gosh.
And lay hands on you. It is Phantasmic.
Oh my gosh.
So much for this being a shorter episode.
Sorry. I am physically kicking myself right now for not getting that.
That was incredible. It was Phantasmic. Unlike your performance this week in Disney history.
That's true. I got one right. But that's still a failing grade.
Listening. They're like, I'm done. I'm not donating to these shenanigans. We're out. For those reasons,
people are withdrawing their Patreon.
That's exactly right.
Dotage.
That's exactly right. All right. Well, this would be the point normally in an episode where when we announce a giveaway, we would announce the giveaway winners, JT, but we're not going to do that this time around. We're going to make you all listen to the entire episode because we will announce who won the book that we're about to interview the author of, Ken Bruce, the Before the Birds Sang Words.
It's about listener retention.
It's about listener retention. So you'll have to stay tuned until the end of the episode to find out, or I guess fast forward until the end of the episode.
We still get the download, so we don't care.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And for those of you who are not fast forwarding, here comes the Disney news.
Yeah.
Earlier this month, Bob Iger spoke at the Morgan Stanley Technology Media and Telecom Conference, which is really easy to say, where he talked about Disney's plans to invest $60 billion into its Parks and Experience division. During the Q&A, Iger was asked what he meant when he said that 70% of that $60 billion would go directly to increasing capacity. Iger responded by saying, quote, "We have thousands of acres of land still to develop. We could actually build 7 new full lands if we wanted to around the world, including the ability to increase the size of Disneyland in California by 50%. You can look at every single location that we've got, and there's land, opportunity. But most importantly, we have so much IP to mine that there's opportunity there to create experiences that we know people will love to have in our parks." He goes on to say, if you look at our IP, you look at the land that we have, you look at the demand that exists in the marketplace, and you look at the return on investment capital. It's a no-brainer to invest that way. It's growing parks and resorts beyond where it already is, end quote. So, all that being said, we don't necessarily know exactly how the parks around the world would expand beyond what is already planned or has recently opened. There have been rumors about expansions coming to Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom in Orlando, but nothing concrete has been announced. We do, however, know that Disney is planning on a project called Disneyland Forward, which, if approved by the city of Anaheim, would see a $1.9 billion investment into Disneyland and California Adventure, including the addition of an Avatar-themed land. So, kind of exciting news. It's interesting news. I did not realize that Disney had that much land available on their hands right now.
Yeah, I didn't either, but real quick, Patrick, what's 70% of 60 billion?
I have no idea.
Neither do I.
How dare you?
Well, 75% is 45 billion because a quarter of 60 is 15. So it would be a little, it'd probably be like 41 or 42 billion. Okay. No, I think this is exciting. I feel like we've also heard a story like this before in the past where they make this big announcement that they're investing billions of dollars into the parks and just it kind of fizzles out and you don't really hear much about it. So if they do this, it's great. I can see why they would be doing it because I feel like we're starting just because of, and this will bleed in a little bit into our next news story, but they've been in a box office slump for a little while now. And I wonder if they're looking ahead and thinking like, if the movie business does not bounce back, are we back to Parks and Recreation being our primary moneymaker and wanting to invest back in that and,
Yeah. I think it is looking that way. The parks, I think, for the past couple of years, or at least a handful of quarters, have reported an uptick in money generated in the parks. Not necessarily tickets or people in the parks, but money generated in the parks is quite high right now, and so it makes sense to keep investing that way. And you got to keep the fans. The fans get bored really quickly in the Disney parks, and so
they do.
They do need at least 3 new announcements every year, basically, to stay afloat with excitement. So
how do you feel about it?
We'll see what happens.
How do you feel about an Avatar land in California?
I'm sure. Why not? I don't know. I mean, we know that there are 3 more movies coming, right? Or 4 more? I can't remember anymore. How many?
I feel like it's like 4.
Yeah,
maybe it's
until we're long gone, they'll still be filming these movies. But it makes sense. I'm worried that it's not going to be as hot of a ticket as they think it is, because this is such a slow burn for Avatar to release new movies over the next 12 years or whatever it is.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm curious.
I think Avatar in Animal Kingdom gets by with how I think it coasts on how incredible the land looks and how immersive it is. But for me, Avatar is one of those properties that it's for a property that makes billions of dollars. It seems to have zero footprint in popular culture.
I'm not sure how many people who go, like to your point, are going to Pandora in Disney World who are actual fans of Avatar in itself. I don't think they're going because they're fans of Avatar. This is just an armchair opinion, but I think they're going, right, like you said, because of the spectacle of the land itself.
It's just Avatar is an interesting thing in general because it is both movies have made billions of dollars and I think both are in like the top 10 grossers of all time, but like no one talks about Avatar when an Avatar movie is not out.
Right. Yeah. I think just much like the park, the movies in themselves are making so much money, in my opinion, because we're going to see what groundbreaking animation and what and like it's a film study basically, and people are going for the spectacle of it, not because of the story. If that's my opinion, or the characters.
I totally get that. Well, speaking of films, our next news story, because this is some more intelligence on Iger and it's directly related to films. So amid a slump at the box office for Disney films, Iger also has said that the film studio has, quote, killed a few projects already that we just didn't feel were strong enough, end quote. He discussed 3 approaches they're taking to write the ship. I should say also, he did not say specifically any movie titles, but there is speculation as to what those could be. But he did discuss different approaches they are taking to write the ship. He says, quote, "One is you have to kill things you no longer believe. We've actually made those tough calls. We've not been public about it," end quote. He also went on to reiterate that for Disney films, they are taking a position of, quote, "Good is not good enough. You have to basically strive for perfection," end quote. So a little context behind this, the recent box office performance of Disney, especially in genres they've dominated for years, including Marvel and animation, are one of the reasons that some investors are trying to push new candidates onto the Disney board and call for a new leader for the company. Side note, interestingly enough, this is a separate news story entirely that we won't cover, but Disney family members recently wrote letters in the past week in support of Iger. To the board. Iger said he doesn't believe the misfires at the box office are because of audience or subject fatigue, like many people are saying. He feels that the studio has gotten away from producing the greatness they're known for, but he's, quote, "confident that we will," end quote. As for how to fix it and return to that level of greatness, he says that, quote, basically means spending a lot of time with the creators, watching these films, giving detailed notes, engaging in a respectful process that results in improvement, end quote. And I feel like he's someone who he's very tuned in creatively as a CEO. That seems to be where he's really passionate and has done a lot of great things. One last thing to note is that that's related to this, that Sean Bailey departed as president of the Motion Picture Studios arm after 15 years. And Searchlight co-president David Greenbaum is in a newly created role as president of Disney Live Action and president of 20th Century Studios. Patrick, questions, comments, concerns?
It's interesting. I mean, it tracks fully like with what is actually happening right now. It's interesting to see Iger blaming the company, and I don't mean blame as in like everyone's in trouble. I think he's just saying, it's us. It's not you. It's us.
He's owning up to it. Yeah, no, he's owning up to it, which I think is kind of refreshing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, is that tough to hear, I imagine, for all of the amazing creators and directors and animators and, Imagineers who are working on these movies? True. I'm sure it's tough to hear that, like, I just put my blood, sweat, and tears in this movie and you're saying we're not doing a good job. But I get it. It's been a minute since we've had a movie just bust out of the water and say, this is it. This is something that collectively we as Disney fans are getting behind. So, I think we're due for a new era of Disney movies.
I think another reason that he doesn't mention specifically, I think they've tried over the last 4 or 5 years to do too much. And we've talked about this a little bit with Marvel
and Star Wars.
It just feels like they're doing too much, and when you stretch yourself too thin, nothing is going to be great. Everything's just going to be good.
Yeah. Like, and I don't feel like anything, and kind of to Iger's point, he was alluding a little bit to this, not specifically this, but we haven't seen, remember when Frozen 2 came out and they like documented the whole thing because the process was so beautiful and so amazing. Why aren't we doing that all the time?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not part of Disney, but I would love to see more of that. I would love to see more of Disney getting behind their own films. You haven't seen that in a while.
That's true. That's very true.
So, do we think Snow White is one of the movies that was on the chopping block?
No, I don't think so. I feel like he's talking about movies that were probably. I think Snow White is so far, and I think they actually. I want to say Snow White wrapped already in terms of actual filming.
Sure,
I think he's talking about movies that were either in development or had just started production. I don't know that he's specifically talking about anything that's like finished or where they had finished principal filming.
Got it. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough.
Although you never know.
You do never know. Interesting. An interesting week in the news for Iger for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, some podcast hosts wait a lifetime for a moment like this. We are so excited. Patrick and I have been so excited about this interview for a long time. We are so happy to welcome Ken Bruce, author of Before the Birds Sang Words, to Gays Do the D. Ken Bruce is a 2-time Emmy Award-winning animation director and storyboard artist. His Emmy wins were for Adventure Time and Over the Garden Wall. His work has appeared in three Best Animated Feature Academy Award-winning movies: Toy Story 3, Up, and Shrek. You've probably seen him. Little movies
maybe you've heard.
May not have heard. I don't know. I don't know y'all's lives. Other credits include Family Guy, SpongeBob SquarePants, Rugrats, The Simpsons, Ren and Stimpy, Space Jam, and Fern Gully.
Remember Fern Gully?
Do I ever?
I feel like everyone in my class used Fern Gully as inspiration for their science fair project that year, as like the rainforest or whatever. Like every single person did a Fern Gully based science project.
Isn't Avatar just live action Fern Gully?
It is indeed. It is indeed. Fern Gully flew so Avatar could soar, I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh boy. So all of that. And now, Ken Bruce is also an incredibly, in our opinion, gifted author, and you could absolutely say now Disney historian. Praise for Before the Birds Sang Words comes from Disney Imagineers, designers, and theme park historians, calling it, quote, essential reading and, quote, exceptional. And then online and, I guess, armchair critics, you could say, are all really calling this a must-read for Disney fans. And I have to agree across the board. It is
100%.
It's such a good book. Fun fact, the interview, we've already done the interview, and so now we're doing the introduction. What a great person as well Ken Bruce is.
A delight, just delightful.
We had such a joy talking to him. I know that you'll have such a joy listening to this interview. So JT, what do you say? Without further ado, let's give our treatles a treat with an interview with Ken Bruce.
Let's enter the Enchanted Tiki room.
Ken Bruce, welcome to Gaze Do the Deep podcast. Thank you so much for being here with us.
The pleasure is all mine. I assure you.
You say that now, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
All mine. Thank you for inviting me. I love your podcast, and I love the title of it. And it's not a little naughty. It's right down my alley.
Perfect.
Sign me up.
I had a feeling. Just to kick us off right away, JT and I are just going to probably shower you with praise and compliments throughout this interview. But really and truly, this book could have been something so dry and boring coming from another author, but you have managed to take, I don't know, is it 400 pages long of the Tiki?
Like 395, yeah.
But you turned it into such a magical story that I speaking for myself, could not put the book down because it didn't read as, a manuscript of a step by step of how we got there. It was a movie that you wrote in a book. It was incredible.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of the way I think, and it's funny you bring that up because as I was writing, there was one moment I'm like, I see this as a movie, not the book necessarily, but a moment in the thing where I'm like, this is drama, and it does play like a story unfolding. So, yeah, thank you so much for that. That wasn't necessarily the intent, but I'm glad it flowed that way for you. That makes me happy.
Absolutely. To know me is to know that I cry fairly easily. I'm a very emotional person. And I got very emotional at some parts during this book. It just takes you back to that moment of wonder in your life and that imagination and magic are real. It's so great. It's so great.
Yeah, and writing the book was trying to remind people of that. I mean, the Enchanted Tiki Room is of another time. It's 60 years old this year. And it's a different wavelength than modern audiences are necessarily used to. It demanded a level of patience which people back in 1963 had. To remind them, like TV commercials often ran 2 minutes back then, and they were mesmerizing to people watching TV. So the Tiki Room has a pace that is different. So to write a book that hopefully reminds people of how important that attraction is and how magical it was and how jaw-dropping it was back then was part of the job. Yeah, definitely part of my job. It still holds up. It's still there today.
Oh yeah.
A little, again, a little clunky around the edges, but behind all of that is an insane amount of charm. And yeah, hopefully I reminded people of that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so we have a lot of questions that we want to ask you. We'll see if we get to them all.
And I want people to know I don't know the questions you're about to ask.
This is true.
I am very excited about that.
You asked specifically. Yeah. Well, so our first question that we want to ask you, that we want to ask all of our guests who come on Gaze to the D, is we want you to give us just a little a Disstory lesson of Ken Bruce. What brought you to Disney? Did you grow up with Disney? What do you love about Disney? Where are you now with Disney?
Oh, wow. That's a lot. So I grew up in Palos Verdes by the ocean, and didn't have every morning it was, fog. It was gray, literally gray. My childhood was literally gray. I did not have parents that took me to the theater. I didn't go to parades. I didn't go to the circus, but we did go to Disneyland. My first trip was when I was 5. And I think the next trip was when I was 7. And I was 7 when I saw the Tiki Room. That being said, I cannot tell you how that pop of color and pageantry and music totally rewired my brain as a child. When I was 5, most of Disneyland was traumatic because I was 5. Why, Dad, did you put me on the Matterhorn? And the Pirates of the Caribbean was I was ducking, for cover. But anyway, but then there were things like It's a Small World, and that just again rewired my brain, and so my passion for Disney definitely started there. Always a big fan of Disney animation, and I swore that I was going to be an animator one of these days. I only worked at Disney Studios 1 year on an ill-fated project we don't need to get into, but I was at Pixar for a couple of years, and I've worked at everywhere else. So I did get into animation, but that animation career started because of my insane love for Disney animation. So that's kind of, and so always a big fan of the Disney parks. When I got older, it changes because I went to CalArts, and Brad said the same thing. Brad Bird, who wrote the foreword, sort of shared the same thing with me. You go to Disneyland as a child and it's just wonder, but then you get into art school, especially the Disney founded art school. I went to CalArts, and now you're studying the place. And I definitely was going to Disneyland to figure it out, and went a lot when I was able to, as a young adult. So that's when it becomes like school. Going to Disneyland was trying to figure out how they did this. So I was always, later in life, a student of Disneyland. And maybe that's part of how the book came to be. I felt like, it gets to a point where I think I can write this. I think I can write this book. So does that answer your question? So, yeah.
Absolutely. I like that you just want to go back that you just casually dropped the name Brad Bird, Academy Award winner Brad Bird, just casually in the conversation.
He was my first boss in animation. On a project called Family Dog, which we did in downtown LA. It was a half-hour animated special that was part of Steven Spielberg's TV anthology called Amazing Stories.
Yes. Yeah.
They were all live-action stories, but Steven Spielberg was sold on the idea of one episode being a cartoon, and that's where Brad came in. And I was able to work on that right out of school. And so Brad was my first boss. I cannot say enough good about Brad. Brad inspired my interest in film. I as a creative force, he can't be beat. He's got that spirit of I'm not doing this to make money. I'm doing this because I can hardly wait for the audience to see this. This is going to be so cool. That fuels him. And and again, I'm going yammering about Brad. Brad has this uncanny ability to really get the minutia right. Animation is great for people who want to get everything, down to a finger, a finger arch, right? He's able to see that close-up stuff and pay attention to it, but always never forget the big picture. That is an incredibly difficult thing to do in the world of animation. But he is able to do both. Great storyteller, great. Yeah. Just so anyway, I was so lucky to get to have him do my forward. Yeah.
What a treat.
And
Cool.
It wasn't until he was halfway into writing it where I wrote him a note going, Brad, I just realized, and it's true, your last name is perfect.
Right.
That's
yes.
right. Yes.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
didn't escape me.
I did not ask Brad because of his last name, but boy.
That's just fate. That's just fate.
Yeah.
Before we get into the book, and we're gonna go deep into the book, but you kind of touched on this a little bit with talking about your career as in animation. For Tweedles at home, can you talk about what it is that an animation director and a storyboard artist does?
Okay, well, let's start with storyboard artists. The storyboard artist is writing the story with pictures. A storyboard is not too much different than a comic strip, but we work in a visual medium, so it's important to block out the story visually. Certainly in feature boards, 99.9% of every storyboard scribble you ever do will not make it anywhere close to the film because it is all about making mistakes and fixing them and making mistakes and fixing them. It's all about crafting and taking in and moving around. So that is just a visual script. But you need to do it because in animation, you need to have a very solid plan before you move forward. And then storyboards are then turned into story reels, which are basically fast slideshows of the storyboard. But yeah, that is a way to plot out the film visually. As a director goes, I always tell people that an animation director is not that different from, say a theater director or a movie director. Instead of telling the actors what to do, you're telling the artists what to do. Or you're shaping a performance with the artists instead of the, actors on stage.
Sure.
And as well as that's super oversimplified because they're also, supervising the look of the film and the scope of the film and the tone of the film. They are the ones keeping a global eye out for all the details. So that's kind of, it's different too in TV. I mean, directors in TV animation are often a little bit different. It depends on the projects, but generally speaking, that's a good way of putting it, I suppose.
I'm sure we could talk to you all day about this, and maybe another day we'll have you on again to talk to you about your adventures in animation. But we do want to get to the book because it's, I mean, as we said, we are such fans of it. And you share a little bit about this at the end of your book about the inspiration behind it. But tell our listeners at home, where did this spark come from? Certainly you have a passion for the Tiki Room, but
love the Tiki Room. Yeah.
What made you want to write a book about it? Because it's such a great story.
There's many different sides to that. I think one side is being in the Tiki Room and knowing as a student of Disneyland, watching people leave in the middle of the show. That used to irritate the heck out of me. Like, why are you doing that? And I kept thinking to myself, if I could just hunt you down, sit you down, and have a conversation with you, or basically I'm going to sit here and read you my book, then you might appreciate what you just left and never do it again. I understand why people leave, but I also want to have that talk, because the Enchanted Tiki Room is the most important attraction Walt ever worked on.
Yeah.
And changed everything. It's the same frustration I feel. I love art. So it's the same frustration I feel when, there's this beautiful, piece of art hanging on the wall in a museum and people walk by it. I want to stop them and go, there's a story to be told about this painting that once I tell you, you'll never walk by this painting casually again. So that was it. The frustration of wanting people to understand how important the Tiki Room is. And then on a more, I don't know, what's the word, prosaic level, I met a person by the name of Kevin Kidney at an event Pete Docter was putting on. Now, Pete Docter was a director at Pixar. Monsters Inc. and Inside Out and Up. I was working on Up at the time, and he always had a yearly luau at his house around the pool. And I was invited to that. And he said, Ken, I have someone you need to meet. And it was Kevin Kidney. Kevin and his partner Jody are kind of big stars in the animation, not in the Disney firmament, in the Disney collectibles firmament. And they've done work at Imagineering, and they've done work for parades and for merchandise. Anyway, so I met Kevin, and Kevin was like, Ken, we quickly found out we were both total old school Walt fans and old school Enchanted Tiki Room fans. And what Kevin had been doing over a handful of years was just sort of grabbing anything that wasn't tied down related to the Tiki Room. And so he had a collection of ephemera, and he had it all on CD-ROM. And he goes, Ken, I think you'd be interested in this. I'll hand you off some CD-ROM sometime. You can take a look. And he said, I don't know what anybody could possibly get out of this stuff. So it's nice that someone is interested in it. And then there was a break. I kind of remember it like it was yesterday. He said, I suppose unless someone was writing a book, this would be useful to someone. And like I write in my book, those words haunted me because I'd always wanted to read a deep dive book on the Tiki Room. There's plenty of little stories out there, but no real deep dive on how that thing came to be. And sure. I'd always wanted to read it, and no one had ever written that book. And they always say, if you want to read it and no one's written it, I guess the job goes to you. So starting with Kevin's collection, I was like, I'm going to take work off. I'm just going to go for it. And I don't know how I had the patience because, it's 16 years later. It took, 8, 9, 10 years of just crafting the book in my head and then 6 years of writing it, all the while, having a day job. But Kevin's collection was the first thing that got me going. And then I added to that collection right and left, and just went nuts. a lot of research.
I can't even,
Well, and I mean, just talking about the research, because of course the book, is centered around the Tiki Room and how it came to be. But one of my favorite, and I think probably one of Patrick's favorite things about reading this book is that you learn about so much more along the way. I loved all these little tangent side tributaries you take. Talking about the creation of Disneyland and the movies that were being filmed and the artists and the inventors and everything along the way that it took to get to the Enchanted Tiki Room. So how did you decide what to include and how to map it all out so that we could understand how all the pieces fell into place?
Well, it started with the debunking of the very first myth. The very first myth I wanted to debunk is that idea that once upon a time Walt is in an antique store in New Orleans. He buys an antique mechanical bird. And that story has always been, that's the bird that inspired the Enchanted Tiki. And it didn't. No, it didn't.
How precious.
So if I'm going to start with that bird, then, well, again, you have to read the book. But Walt didn't pick that bird up and go, God, wouldn't it be amazing to have a room full of animated birds put on a show? No, not in the least. But Walt was a fan of mechanical creatures and bought tons of them throughout his career. So if I'm going to start there, then I actually have to start with the very first bird first mechanical bird that probably had the biggest impact on Walt, which wasn't that one, but an automaton that sat atop an astronomical clock in Strasbourg that Walt would have seen when he was 17 and during World War I. That clock and that bird, no doubt, inspired a lifelong love of mechanical creatures. But beyond that, that's just a part of a much larger picture.
Right.
I think inarguably Walt's love for dioramas, for miniatures, for toys, for miniature trains, all were paths that led to the Tiki Room. So that when that meeting Walt had when he was putting together a Tahitian tea room with John Hench and his boys came, and then the idea of, maybe this room should have a bunch of mechanical birds in it came about, Walt was primed. Walt was already ready to go. Like, that got him excited. But it got him excited because from his childhood on, this was his wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So it's a complicated story, and but that's the fun of it. Again, my argument is that story about that little mechanical bird that he bought, inspiring the Tiki Room, is a very simple, sweet, and gettable story, and it sells the idea of magic, and fans have been spreading that like wildfire because it's just a cute story and it fits. But the real story is so much more chaotic and so much more complex and so much more interesting.
Yes, absolutely.
Than that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. Those little stories that you talk about, like, Walt going and buying a train set, and it sparked this whole thing. But I mean, they're cute and they're digestible and audiences love it. But the book, as you just said, I'm like, it goes so, the onion is so layered in this book. It's just,
I hope
it's exceptional.
Very fascinating.
Well, in fact, I want to ask you, I guess, put you on the spot here to remember your own book now and your pages. Was there anything that specifically surprised you as you were doing some research, that something that you found out that audiences and historians hadn't heard before necessarily?
Yes. Many times, actually. The things that pop out right now, well, again, another myth is the Barker book. So, the Tiki Room comes out, they gave out cards to guests, and for responses. Everybody loved the show, of course. We're blown away, jaw dropping. But one person said, "You should probably put a bird outside to tell people what's inside." So they did. They put an animatronic bird. Now it's called Juan instead of Jose. And so he yapped about come to the Tiki Room. So he was hoisted above the entrance. And the myth goes that they took that thing away because he was drawing crowds. Big myth. That story has been told ad nauseum.
I've heard it. Yeah.
Well, it's like, okay, he's drawing crowds, which is causing a traffic jam. That's the way the story has been told. Okay, well, if he's causing traffic jams and that's a problem, how long do you give the bird to live there before you take it down? A week, 2 weeks, a couple months, maybe even 6 months? No, that bird was out there for 6 years. So if that was a problem, he would have been taken down a long time ago.
Yeah.
The problem was he was a maintenance nightmare. He was an outdoor bird. He had to be constantly switched out. He was on all day. They have to, put up a ladder to get him down. They had to switch him out constantly. He was made out of material that rotted in the sun. You have to remember, too, 1960s, 1970s, Orange County was incredibly smoggy. So the bird got dirty. He was losing feathers. There's one, when he got wet, they would put an umbrella over him. No, he was a maintenance nightmare. So eventually they were like, stop with no. No, we got to take him down. And that was 6 years. He was up there for 6 years. So another one, let me see. Finding out specifically, you would keep hearing Walt talk about, this show is linked to the Polaris sub, and the same technology that animates these birds is linked to launching missiles, which is kind of true. But I was like, how would have Imagineers found out about any of this, and what did they actually take from?
Right.
And I remember stumbling upon the link. It was in a popular science magazine, and it was related to the Polaris sub, and it was related to a testing mechanism that they used that they would actually record the pitch and roll of the ocean and then play it back on a platform. And that was so that they could put a missile system on it that they could test the missile as it moved in space so that they could still get the trajectory of it right, no matter where it was at any time. So that's the big eureka. It's like, wow, you're able to record motion and play it back. How are you doing that? The Disney people did have a link to our Defense Department, and that was the big link. And again, they were going so fast through tech for the Polaris missile system that by the time the Disney engineers, I call them engineers because my dad was an engineer, not Imagineers. by the time they got to it, it was already obsolete. So the government was happy to give it to them. And that was a system of recording pulses on tape that could trigger movement. So finding that was like, when I finally found that link, it was a eureka moment. Because no one really talks about that. And then another thing that was, okay, bear with me on this, because I just thought it was hilarious. Richard Sherman has been telling the same story like all of his life, which is he gets to go into the Tiki room. He doesn't know anything about it. He's there, of course, with his brother, and he's there with Larry Clemens, and they don't know why they're there. They run through the show. The show did not have the opening number. The show was just stuff happening. It was not a show. It was just stuff happened. So they sit through this, and Walt turns to them and says, it's a great show, but nobody knows what it's about. And Richard and Robert and Larry's the one who started everything. When the show ended, he was like, what is this? What is this? And I'm sorry, that's where Walt goes, this is why you're here. You're going to write a song that opens this, that literally tells people what the show is. So if you actually go to the Tiki Room, listen to that song, and it's a laundry list of exactly what you're there for. Mm-hmm. Tropical Hideaway, whatever, it's all there. So Walt turned to them, and then Richard and Robert and Larry started spitballing. Well, like, who's going to tell people what this is? And Walt just sat there quietly. And then like, do the totems tell it? Like, do the totems announce the numbers and start the show? And they're like, no, the macaws, these birds up here, they speak, birds speak, yeah. So they're just spitballing. They're like, yeah, we'll have one of these macaws can be the MC. Yeah, he'd be a great MC. And Walt was like, no, we're going to do 4 MCs. They're going to be Spanish and German and French and the Shermans were Richard, because he never stops telling the story, was like the genius of Walt, like how he came up with that idea on the spot just blows my mind. That's the amazing thing about Walt. He was just such a genius about that stuff. But they didn't recognize that Wally Bogue had already written just a few days earlier, had already written a 4 MC treatment to start the show. Walt kept mum about that stuff. It was frustrating to a lot of people that worked with him. But when I actually did the timeline and found out, oh, no, Walt wasn't making that stuff up. It was already made up.
Right.
I was like, gotcha, Richard. I hate to blow your bubble. But no. So there are other things. But I remember, So when you start putting together a timeline, you start to see these interesting little aha moments. And there were others. There were plenty of them. Yeah.
Hundreds. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any interesting things in particular that stories that didn't make the book?
If you can share them.
If you can share them, yeah. If you're at liberty to say.
That's a good question. I have not like what didn't make it into the book. Not really. I feel like I told the story the way I needed to tell the story. I don't feel like I left too much out. I always wanted to just end the book when the show opened, but I still felt like I need to have 2 stories. One on what happened to the Tiki Room afterwards, and a brief bit on audio animatronics and where it's at now. But I feel like I kind of told the story the way I wanted to. And on that note, the way I approached it was like, I'm going to write a book about the story of how the Tiki Room came to be. And I'm going to write it in such a way as if Walt had absolutely nothing else on the plate, on his plate. That was all he was focused on. And of course, that's not the case. But in pushing all of that other stuff away and only focusing on the stuff that was relevant to Walt's love of toys and miniatures and how that led to Disneyland and then the Tiki Room. If I just focused on that, well, because I did that, I feel like I saw a side of Walt that was completely new. And I feel really validated because other people have come forward and said just as much. We've read a lot of books about Walt, but this was all about Walt in the creative space. And this is all, and in doing that, I discovered a different kind of Walt, a Walt that was vulnerable, a Walt that was insecure, a Walt that had something to prove creatively, a Walt that had a childhood where he was forbidden to play with toys. He didn't, his father didn't believe in their values, so he didn't grow up with toys. He told a story about how he would, when he was a kid and running the newspaper route, he found kids' toys on the stoop and played with them at 4 a.m. Until the sun came up, and then went back on his route. That's very, very telling because, so look, Patrick, you've got all those toys behind you. Again, it's that idea of like this, I don't want to say stunted childhood, but we're all kind of, Walt was that guy who was constantly going back to his childhood or something was missing. So he's going to continue to seek it throughout his entire adult life. And, so when the Tiki Room opens, among other things, it's a culmination of it's Walt's toy shop come to life. It's a piece of his childhood that he's racing after always. That little bit of loss that you keep fighting for. So again, in writing the book, just through that lens, a new Walt came out, and I've read every book on Walt, but this was a different kind of Walt that came out, and that was a surprise. Yeah.
You do such a great job. This is you led us into a perfect position here for our next question too. Everyone likes to think about Walt Disney as like America's grandpa, right? Like he was just a dreamer and a gentleman. But you paint this human picture of Walt that shows insecurities and it show at times tantrums and anger but always going back to the magic. At some point, he gets there and he frustrates people. I have to believe we all know Disney sort of keeps their cards close to the chest, right? They don't really love to tell all these insecure stories or things that go wrong, etc. So in researching the book, where did you go for this information? Did you hit any roadblocks? How did you get these really detailed, specific stories?
This is a tricky subject because I would have loved to use the Disney archives.
Of course.
But there's a price to be paid when you use the Disney archives. Well, now, if they were actually on the Zoom call with me, they'd be like, "No, Ken, how dare? No, we love you." And there's a price to be paid because they are in the business of holding on to the magic.
Sure.
And no names, but I have a friend who's writing a book now who is working with the archives. And, one of the things he was told is you can't write anything about Walt being grumpy. And Walt was grumpy all the time, as they also shared with me. No, Walt was a grumpy guy. He was not a warm, fuzzy Care Bear. But anyway, so I could have clawed and scraped my way into the archives, but they would have had final say on the book that I was about to write. And I assure you, they would not have allowed me to write the book that I wanted to write. As far as getting the research, there's a lot out there. And there's a lot out there. You just have to know where to find it. There's no possible way I'm going to get the money back that I put into writing the book, just research wise. I was able to get, one of the best things I was able to get was an original Tiki Room script that Bill Cottrell owned. Bill was the right-hand man of Imagineering. So he ran WED. Walt ran WED, but he gave kind of the day-to-day grind to Bill. So I have Bill's personal script, which is great because it has scribbles on it and notes and scratches and that dude used that script, and there's great information in it, and there's also great information in the things that he erased too. Like you can really, if you dig down. So anyway, that cost a lot of money at auction, among other things. There was just tons of stuff. So it was a lot of research over many years, but it's out there. Many people have told their stories, and you just have to cobble them together.
Absolutely.
Newspaper clippings, old magazines. It's out there. But it was some digging, and Kevin's collection was just great too. So cutting records and audio recording records and
Sure.
and anyway.
Amazing.
So, Ken, one of the other things that really struck me in the book, and this is another one of the tributaries that you went down that I loved, was just around Disneylandia and the idea and development around that, and how it set the stage for so many things that would be synonymous with Disney parks. I mean, even down to something like crowd science and how they were trying to figure out how to move the crowds through. Do you think we would have the parks as they are today without this? I mean, I think this is a little known part of Disney history in the grand scheme of things. Would we have the parks as they are today without Disneylandia and everything that happened around that?
No, we wouldn't. A lot of people sell the Disneylandia project as sort of a research effort on Walt's part to make Disneyland. It really wasn't. I mean, it was, but that's not the intent. There were two things simultaneously happening, and that was a smallish park that was going to go on, next to the studio as a way to keep guests interested. And that was because the big push was, well, there's a lot of people that want to go visit the studio. And Walt was like, they're just going to see people hunched over their desks. That's not very interesting. So there was that park going, but the park kept getting bigger and bigger, but it wasn't big enough yet. But the Disneylandia project was all Walt's, and that was based on his love of miniatures and dioramas, and he was just really excited about doing something on his own terms, which is counterintuitive to what we know. But back then, the Disney studio, Walt was bored, really bored of what was going on. Like, he was done. Animation wasn't interesting to him anymore.
Right.
There were a lot of failures. He wanted to move on, and the side project was just a series of dioramas that he would build with his own hands, put his name on, and it would really mean something. And then he would cart that around inside train cars, and people would visit. So not only was Walt just sort of disinterested in the sort of day-to-day stuff going on, it was also a studio that was beholden to stockholders. And it wasn't really Walt's baby anymore. It was during Snow White. It was during, Pinocchio. It wasn't until Mary Poppins that Walt got really interested in making a movie. But he was out of the loop. But that side project that he did quietly and as privately as he possibly could, using some studio talent that he didn't tell his brother about, because his brother was running the company. Like, this was a Walt that was sneaking around trying to get away with something, which again was his own project that he could say, "This is mine. This is my baby." And that's where he started tinkering with the Mechanical Man, and that's when he brought out the mechanical bird that he had purchased. So anyway, that diorama project was dying out because it just wasn't going to work for a number of reasons. While that project was dying out, this studio side park just kept outgrowing the space, and that's when Walt realized we can't do it at the studio. And if we can't do it at the studio, it is its own island unto itself. It is now mine in a way, because he had been pouring money into both projects out of his own pockets. So kind of Disneylandia, while Disneylandia died, it morphed into the much bigger Disneyland project. I hope that makes sense, because that was a big confusion for me, because Disneylandia was its own thing, but the people that were helping Walt on that project just slid over to Disneyland. They were the first Imagineers because A, Walt, you can't do it at the studio anymore. It's outgrown it. 2, it has to be its own thing. 3, if it has to be its own thing, then let's get going. It's your pet, it's your baby. And then it needs outside money. He wouldn't have been able to do it without ABC's money and a few other chunks of cash. So when he found that cash, it was all go. And that famous quote of Walt's, like, "Let's do this thing for real." Like, now we can do this thing for real.
Yeah.
Because, Disneylandia was a bunch of adorable miniatures.
And isn't Granny Kincaid's cabin from Disneyland, isn't that on display, or it was at one time at the at, I almost heard it, Disney MGM Studios, at Disney Hollywood Studios, the one man store. Yeah, it's that Granny Kincaid's cabin. So if you read about that in the book, it's there.
And the mechanical figure that he was working on too.
Right.
Yeah. And it's funny because people just wander past those. Those two exhibits are the most important artifacts in the history of the Disney parks. Those two right there, and they're sitting
Incredible.
right there. Yeah. Their importance in sort of launching something bigger
right
is everything. And again, they were not being built to as research for Disneyland. They were their own thing. But you can look at them that way if you want.
Yeah.
Fair. Well, so this kind of leads me. I promise I'll get to a question in a second here, but so this leads into the creation of Disneyland, right? And we've all heard the stories of how Disneyland was sort of a disaster day one. You paint a picture though of Disneyland that is so horrific, so much worse than I had ever heard. The stories that are in there are incredible. We won't go into too much detail because I want people to buy this book and read it and figure it out for themselves, but so many things, I guess this is where my question comes in. So many things, be they disasters or accidents or random happenstances. For instance, adding the word Enchanted to the Tiki Room because somebody was already using the words Tiki Room, so they added the word Enchanted to it. So many things just fell into place so beautifully for the Tiki Room to happen.
Right.
What's something, in your opinion, I guess, as I'll call you the expert on the subject because what else can I call you? Is maybe the biggest is maybe the biggest piece of that puzzle that gets us to the Tiki Room. What's the biggest aha moment that unlocks it all for you? I guess
it's Rolly Crump's story, which launched it. Now everything, like all the dominoes, were in place, so that when John Hench brings out they wanted to do a little tea room, a little cafe. It was going to be above a little stream, but there's so many other layers of that. So no, John, it's like the order goes out. We need some some inspirational sketches of what the interior of this thing is going to look like. And again, I don't get to that moment. I don't know, 200 pages in. Good God! But again, so all the dominoes are there. So John Hench drew up what looks like every other tiki space across America. The thatch, the bamboo, the plantings. But he just fancifully added in some birds roosting in the rafters. And he, of course, you have the totems with the faces on them. Right. And of course, you have a lot of foliage. These were just decorative elements. But when, Walt looked at them, he was like, what? I don't know if I'm not going to use any bad words on your podcast.
I have before, Ken. It's fine.
But Walt used bad words. He was like, "Well, why do you have birds in here? Like what are these? We can't have birds in here." Rolly would say, Walt said, because they'll poop in the food.
Right.
But I assure you, Walt said, because they're going to shit in the food. and John again spitballed. He was like, "Well, no, Walt, they're not real birds; they're stuffed birds." And again, he hadn't thought of any of this previous. And then Walt, and again, I tell the story of why Walt was against any taxidermy in his park. He said, "We don't do this. We don't stuff birds and put them in a Disneyland restaurant." And of course, John goes, "Well, no, they're not stuffed. They're mechanical." And he's just making this stuff up. And Walt, again, he's ready to go. They had already worked on some mechanical birds. Walt was, for a Chinese dinner show that was about to be canceled. So Walt knew that birds would work fine. So he was like, "Wow, okay, cool. That's a thing." And then everybody just went nuts. Well, what if we have the birds talk to each other across the room? And then the machine started moving forward. I don't even know what the question was you asked, but that was again with all the dominoes again ready to fall. That was the moment that exploded the Tiki Room into being. And there's so many other layers too. Like the Tiki Room was a patch to a problem, a seam on the side of one building with it shared, shingles for one side towards Main Street and,
Right.
and bamboo thatch on the other. And as you walked into Adventureland, you could clearly see this weird seam on this building, because this is a building that was serving two lands. And, Walt walked the park every Saturday. And, this is something that him and his people would have noticed every day and hated. So the building that became the patch was the Tiki Room. Before it actually was the Tiki Room, it was going to, it was that tea room, that cafe. So again, there's so many different layers to how it all came to be. Anyway, I don't remember your question, but it was a good question.
You answered it, I promise.
Ken, you'll be shocked to know that I want to wade into another tributary that you go down in the book. I mean, the thing is, though, the thing is, they all flow back into and inform the river, right? And now that I've run that metaphor into the ground, I want to talk about...
That is a perfect metaphor.
It's a Jungle Cruise metaphor, really.
It's a Jungle Cruise metaphor, yeah. You take a really interesting look at Tiki culture, which I'm kind of fascinated by, just because there's been a resurgence of it recently. And you specifically talk about the Tiki craze in America starting in kind of the 20s and going into the 30s and really exploding after World War II. Yes. But you also talk about the line between celebration of the culture and the appropriation of the culture. And as we all know, Disney has been taking a hard look at its movies and making some changes and righting some cultural wrongs from the past, like in the Jungle Cruise and Splash Mountain. What are your thoughts on the Tiki Room, the Enchanted Tiki Room, and do you see it ever being up for an evolution like some of these other attractions have undergone?
That's such a loaded question, and that is a very, very loaded question. And at the risk of tripping over myself, well, no, I will steadfastly say the Tiki Room as it is a pop culture masterwork, just the way it is. And to tinker with it is to tinker with history. It's it's so important that, and they've already played with it.
Fair.
It's not a debate for me because I perhaps I'm biased. And I also am, and cultural appropriation is not necessarily a bad thing. It's bad if it's disrespectful. And there is no shred of disrespect going on with the Tiki Room. And also the Tiki culture that we know is it is a mishmash of so many other cultures and ideas that you can't really pinpoint it as a thumbing the nose to any specific culture, because it's such its own thing. One of the surprising things that I did find is in researching who was offended and who wasn't is, quite frankly, the people that are being offended aren't native Polynesians.
Right.
They don't have a problem with it. They're like, just don't be disrespectful. Right. Be respectful to our culture, but we'll know it when you're being disrespectful. There's no disrespect. There's only one thing, an absolute love for all of those mishmash of cultures. And I don't know, that's all I can say. And the Tiki Room is one of the last remaining bastions of that kooky, eccentric, weird, daffy love affair that mid-century Americans had with all things exotic.
You say no disrespect at the Tiki Room, but what about when it was under new management?
Oh, yeah. No, we don't even need to. Yeah,
we don't go there. No.
That will take another hour.
We're not even going to touch on it.
That was a group of people who somehow got in power who hated the Tiki Room.
Yeah.
The people who put together under new management thought that the Tiki Room was crap and worthy of being teased, and that's one of the reasons for the book too. It's like respect must be paid.
Yes.
Yeah. So don't even get me started.
It doesn't escape the book, and you took great care to even explain. For the time that they were creating the Tiki Room, they did pay great homage to a lot of some native peoples who were in singing some of the songs and invited to be there for the celebrations. And so, yeah, they took, you could argue, better care then than sometimes they do today.
Yeah, they're actually ahead of, that's part of the story too. Is that Hawaiian War Chant is based on an actual a love ballad that was written by a native Polynesian. There's nothing warlike about it. It's actually a beautiful love ballad. And American scribes, Ralph Freed, they turned it into, talk about the cultural appropriation. They turned it into a kooky melody with English lyrics. And George Bruns, the composer, started using those lyrics, but over time, a great chunk of time, those English lyrics started to be scrapped for the actual Hawaiian lyrics, which were sung by the totems and the orchids. That was actually a progressive move. I don't think George was thinking that, but he was like, no one understands these words, but it sure is beautiful. And and so he ended up nixing all of the Freed lyrics for the actual original love ballad, which again, it's called the Hawaiian War Chant. So you've got totems that are actually chanting, among other things, parts of some lyrics of a love ballad.
Right.
But again, that's how kooky the Tiki Room gets. And again, so Americans' take on Polynesia was definitely naive, but it was also coming from the heart.
I would agree with that. Absolutely.
Yeah, you can tell. Yeah.
It's so moving on, just turn the page in that book and we're going to move on to, so the creators, all of the Imagineers. It's so clear when reading the book, what a fan and what respect you have for these early days Imagineers. And
I love them. I feel like they were behind me like the entire time.
It feels that way.
There is a weird, writers talk about it, but I felt it. I was in, you get in a headspace where you're in the moment. I am back there with them in 1962 and 1963, and it feels very real. It feels like they're with me. It feels like they're very, very much alive. And the sense is, I want to do them justice. I want to do them proud. I want people to know them and recognize that they were all doing something no one had ever done before.
You captured it. So I mean, they all get a beautiful spotlight in the book, and we learn things that we didn't know we needed to know about. It's so good. I guess my question behind that is, and I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm going to do it anyways. Do you have a favorite Imagineer or web employee?
I love them all.
Yeah, fair.
I love them all. But you know what I have to say? I love them all. Like, I got to meet, through the book, a guy by the name of Ernie Tavares, who no one really has talked about, but he did voices for the Enchanted Tiki Room, and I got to know him a little bit more through his daughter. They're all great. Rolly and Wathel Rogers, who was the can-do guy for the mechanics. We have to remember, Wathel was just this guy in animation who loved and grew up as a kid putting together little mechanical toys. And Walt says, I want to do an entire restaurant full of animated birds. Wathel, you're my guy. Now, you have to understand, Wathel, none of the Wathel's story is like every other story there. It's like, you what? You're asking me to do something I don't even know where to begin. But Walt had an instinct and believed in them, and that belief in people like Wathel got them through. And again, Wathel and Blaine and no one had ever done this before.
Yeah,
it was space age. But they did it. So my respect for engineers, my respect for just that sense of what? I don't even know where to begin. And that they did it.
Yeah. I can't imagine. Yeah, just having been, it must have been so stressful to have been an Imagineer while Walt was alive, because anytime he walked into a room, I imagine they were like, "Oh God, what's he gonna tell us to do next?"
No, and maybe, it's hard because I want to meet them all. I wish I could.
Yeah.
Harriet Burns came alive for me. She's given a lot of interviews. God bless her for all the interviews she's done. She's never turned down a single interview, and so she tells a lot of the same stories over and over again. But what a woman! She was a woman, like a beautiful woman in a man's world, and she was respected as she should have been. And again, if we're going to get a little naughty, she must have been hit on 8 times a day.
Yeah.
But she was like, I see a sense of humor in her. I see someone who is a little naughty in the best sense of the word. Like, I don't know that anything could have shocked her, and yet she looks so prim and proper. But like, I would just die to sit down and hear her story. But their stories are out there. But she had to be inventive and invent new ways of, cobbling together these animated creatures who were putting on a show every day. And she just pops out of her interviews and sits next to me, and I just like, "Oh, Harriet, tell me some more."
Right. Well, and what's the old and she did it in heels as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, she did everything they were doing, and she did it in heels. I mean, like, come on.
Yeah. Well, she did. She wore a smock during the day, but like, I don't. Yeah. Her job was messy, but she was using power tools and soldering irons and power saws, and yet I don't know how her hair kept. I mean, we see her in footage with her hair and makeup done perfectly. She was of course she got a little messy, but what a woman. So I loved getting to know her, but I love them all. Like, their stories all need to be told. And again, in context, this is before Pirates of the Caribbean and Haunted Mansion and It's a Small World. This is the first show of its kind. Jaws dropped back in 1963 because no one had seen anything remotely like it. It was one endless magic trick after another. And if you can put on that 1963 helmet and see it through their eyes, it's astounding. So these people were doing something, again, that was unprecedented and weird. And as the show was being put together, the show kept building because the sense of delight kept growing, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. Wow, you can do that? Well, what if we do this? We can do that. Well, what if we, like, that show just got weirder and more audacious as it went because once you saw one thing working, all you could think about, certainly Walt could think about as well.
Yeah.
Let's just keep going. Until, of course, the show outgrew the restaurant. But that was just crazy making, like loony time. So anyway, see, I told you I get going.
It's great.
Well, you just mentioned, Jungle Cruise, Haunted Mansion, these other attractions. And, we all know that Disney's had a recent history of turning attractions into movies. And I'm curious, Ken, if someone from Disney came to you and said they wanted you to adapt the Enchanted Tiki Room into a film, what would be your approach?
A documentary.
Yeah.
There you go.
I mean, yeah,
I can't argue with that.
Yeah, you can't get better than the actual story.
The actual wait, we're all going to be making a show where these animated birds, again, we're used to audio animatronics today. This was new. This was so they're doing something just daffy. One reviewer was even talking about, once they got all the speakers in and they started to actually do the multi-track in the show, even the idea of hearing audio in the round in a room where there's 200 plus speakers. Well, an interviewer was like, "Wow, Walt actually was able to witness Walt in one of these times where all they were doing was playing the soundtrack in a dimensional space with all those speakers, and Walt." Raising his arms and like he's conducting, like, because he's wrapped up in this sound that no one had heard before. We had heard stereo, but again, that idea of sound in the round and so fully immersive back in '63 was a new thing, and it was exciting. And you're like, wow, this is Yeah. So everybody was getting bowled over as it kept growing.
Oh man, I think my favorite scene in the movie when you turn it into a movie is gonna. I'm just putting it out there. It's gonna happen. Is gonna be when the press premiere and they press go and nothing happens.
Yep.
I can't. That bowled me over in like
Really?
laughter and horror, and like I was so like
It's
I
a
felt,
perfect dramatic moment.
I felt like I was there when you were like reading it. I felt like I was in the room and going, "Oh God, what's going to happen now?" Like we've all been there as theater actors or somebody who's done any entertainment. That anything that can go wrong is going to go wrong, and it did. It's incredible.
How funny!
Well, oh, it's so great. It's so great. So I guess as we wrap up here, this has been such an extraordinary conversation.
Can I interject something?
Please do.
Earlier, Patrick, you said, and I'm just going to jump in. I'm not really an emotional person, but there were moments when I'm writing the book. There's a couple of moments where I was like, "Oh, I'm going to cry." Oh, I just remembered. And because it's just like weirdly emotional.
Yes.
And I won't tell you it's just emotional for me. And I cannot tell you I cannot tell you how many Tiki Room dreams I've had. Because when you start writing, oh my God, it takes over. Like,
I bet
there were so many dreams I had where the Tiki Room is gone. It's just gone. I go to the Tiki Room and it's gutted. Or,
oh my God, that's a night terror.
Don't put that out there.
Taken apart, or it just cannot be it's just gone.
That's awful.
Or shredded. And so I think that's part of the fuel of this too, is just please don't forget how precious this is. I want, there's a whole sequence that was cut from the show and it's no longer there. There's no reason it cannot be brought back. It's a little dull. It was always a little dull in context, but it can be dressed up. I want to see the original Tiki Room back. It's not like Imagineers can't go and dress it up a little bit more. I have no problem with that. But yeah, that this was an emotional journey for me on several levels.
Of course.
When you get in it, and because it was very personal to Walt. I feel like it's one of the last remaining little things out there that is such a reflection of Walt the child.
Oh, that got me a little emotional just thinking about it. It's such a great book. We love it so much. In fact, if you would indulge us for a second, we are actually going to give away 2 copies. Right, we're going to give away 2 copies of the book to some of our listeners, and we would just love you to be a part of that. I'm sure that they would love to have their name read along with you here on the podcast. So if I scroll up, we did a little contest on our Instagram, and people entered, and they
I didn't know anything about this.
They jumped through some hoops to get a copy of your book. So we have 2 very lucky winners. One being at Tinkerbear. God bless that Instagram handle at Tinkerbear. You have won a copy of this amazing book, and then one of our Patreon winners also won Danko Direct. So congratulations,
of course,
you
Danko.
Two. Of course, right?
Danko Direct, we love Danko.
You're best friends. We can't wait for all of our listeners to read your book. It's so good. If you didn't win a copy,
sweet.
No, we're not. We criticize things a lot on this show.
Well, I'm glad we didn't go down the under new management track. That would have been a little sticky.
Now that was a dumpster fire.
Yeah,
it was. It really was. Well, I guess my last question for you before we unfortunately say goodbye is: do you have any plans for another book for a different attraction within Disney or somewhere else, or was this sort of? Fair.
No. No. I mean, who knows? But that project took everything out of me. I don't know how people do it. I don't know, how do they find the patience for that? Because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
No plans for another book. Maybe this is my magnum opus. I don't know that I have anything left in me to yammer about. But who knows? Maybe. I mean, and actually, I'm excited about the idea of maybe a subsequent edition if I were given permission to actually use photographs that I've already been told I cannot use. But if the lovely people at Disney recognize that this is in fact a love letter, maybe another edition with more material. And I am, if I got something wrong in the book, I'm delighted. That is nothing to be threatened by. That's like, oh, cool. I got that wrong. Let's fix it. Who knows? At the moment, no other books in me. Oh God, it's. I'm just. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe I'll be inspired. Yeah. Who knows?
Well, if you accidentally send some of those photos our way, we will not tell anyone who sent them our way.
No.
And we won't share them.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I've got a stash of amazing behind-the-scenes photos that no one has seen and shouldn't see because Disney has lawyers.
Yes,
lots of lawyers.
But maybe a subsequent edition. And there'll be an audio version.
Oh, that'd be great. I love that. It
will be fabulous when that happens.
I'm sure.
No plans. No.
Something we love to do with our guests, we end each show with what we call Quick D, which is some yeah. It's not as bad as it sounds, but bear with us. Just some rapid fire questions for you, if you would indulge us for one more minute.
I'm not going anywhere.
Okay, great. So we're going to do Diz or Dat. So we're going to give you two options, and you tell us which one you prefer within Disney. Yes. Oh, great. JT, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. So the Enchanted Tiki Room in Disneyland or in Walt Disney World?
Oh, Disneyland. Oh, duh.
the original.
Because
Fair.
Now, it's a bigger space in Florida, but I think that does disservice to the actual show. And those people in Florida have put the macaws, the MCs, way too close to the fountain. It's really...
They are very close.
They're real close. Yeah,
really awful. I hate it.
Right. Very decisive. All right. A Dole Whip or a Mickey ice cream bar?
Mickey ice cream bar. Yeah.
Ooh, good choice.
Yeah.
Good choice.
Yeah, good choice.
Yeah.
Avengers Campus or Galaxy's Edge?
Ugh. Both are dystopian and very not Walt. But let's go to Disneyland so that we can get caught up in a war. I don't know. I'm a Star Wars kid, so sign me up.
All right.
Fair. All right. Well, we'll bring it back to Walt's time then. Jungle Cruise or Small World?
Small World.
Fair enough. I love that. I guess one more question. This is not a Diz or Dat. Is thoughts on the revamping of the Country Bear Jamboree?
Oh God, I'm pathetically old school. I'll see it when I see it. Part of the charm of the original is just how un-PC it really was.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
We'll see. I'm open to the new one, but I am definitely a fan of the original. Yeah.
You're in good company here that we have the exact same thoughts about
but
it.
But I wish it was the original. They keep trimming it out. They keep thinking people are just going to nod off, but they just keep cutting jokes and lines. And sometimes that little interstitial stuff between stuff is so much a part of the charm.
Yeah.
The current one before they changed it was just once they trimmed 2 or 3 minutes out of it, it's got a momentum that I'm not a fan of.
Fair enough.
But anyway, whatever. We'll see.
We will indeed. Well, Ken, thank you so much.
We've
taken up.
Yes, thank you for being here.
Oh yeah, we've taken up so much of your time, but we can chat with you forever. We want you back on the show if you have more stories to tell us anytime. It's been great.
Anytime you want me, I'm there for you.
I love it.
The book is fantastic, and anyone who's listening needs to go out buy it. You won't regret it. It's really, really, really fantastic.
That is very sweet. Definitely, buy it. Woohoo! Grab a copy. You guys are great.
Hey, Patrick.
Yes, JT, you said it so sultry. Hi.
Well, that's because it's time for quick tea.
Oh, I see now.
We're still in our tropical hideaway.
We're relaxed. We have
relaxed.
tiki drinks.
We
We're
have
walking.
tiki drinks. The birds are singing words. The flowers are blooming.
Oh, the Sherman Brothers.
Yes.
What are we doing, JT?
I was taken away. Calgon, take me away.
I'm so exhausted from this week. We've been recording for 2 days now, literally for 2 days.
I also just feel like I literally 2 days, and I feel like I just aged myself with the Calgon take me away moment.
Yeah, well, I was with you. I just chose not to respond to it. But what an interview, though! What a great interview. We just
my
had.
gosh, he is just such a delight, and I have to reiterate again. Go buy this. Go on Amazon because it's the only place you can get this book right now. Go on Amazon. This is not a time where you can support your independent bookstores. You have to go on Amazon and order the book there. Yeah. Please go on and do it. Buy the book. Read it. You will not be disappointed. It is a fascinating book, and the pages will fly by.
They really will. I honestly couldn't put it down. I was just day and night just reading this book until I was finished with it. I couldn't wait. It was almost like suspenseful. I couldn't wait to see where they go with it next. Yeah.
And the appreciation you will have for not only the Tiki Room, but just the parks in general after you read this book will just grow exponentially.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So thank you again, Ken Bruce, for gifting us with your time.
But this episode is growing exponentially, so let's jump into quick D.
Yes, quick D indeed.
Yes, let's make it quick.
Let's make it quick. Let's make it D. Okay, so we got a quick D in our email box, actually, from Scott, who is one of our newer Patreon members.
Quick D from a P.
Quick D from a Patreon. Scott says, question for the show. You get to the Magic Kingdom in Disney World specifically and find out that due to overcrowding that day, you can only do one ride or show. You can only eat at one restaurant. You can only have one snack and only use one restroom. And only buy one item of, this is my favorite question ever, only buy one item of merchandise. And last but not least, you can only take one person with you. Dangerous.
Oh my God.
What are your picks?
Okay.
Oh, Scott.
I love this
what
question.
What a thorough question.
I love the thoroughness. Yes. I love it.
Okay, let's start with
Shantae, you stay.
We'll start with one ride or show. What's your one ride or show in the Magic Kingdom? I mean, it has to be the Tiki Room, right? We're just in the Tiki
Honestly,
Room.
And I legit think it would be for real.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I don't think I want the pressure of trying to pick like one of the coasters or the pressure of trying to pick like I really think I would pick the Tiki Room.
You don't want to let anyone else down, any other of the rides down. It's true.
Right, that's it. Yeah.
I would too though. And I was just chatting with my friend Ken Bruce the other day.
You mean our friend Ken Bruce?
Yes. And I mentioned to him, I was like, I actually honestly can't wait to go back to the Tiki Room, knowing what I know now and like just sitting in the history of it all.
And I feel like I'm going to wear out whoever I'm with all the information that I know from the book.
Did you know? Oh, we're that person now, right?
Oh, yeah, for real.
Great. We've earned it. We've earned that badge.
Yes, we have.
Okay, so Tiki Room.
What's next?
For both of us. You can only eat at one restaurant. What restaurant are you eating at? I mean, I feel like Skipper Canteen is my tried and true in the Magic Kingdom specifically.
That's a really good one.
Thank you.
I'm actually going to pick, I can go anywhere.
Anywhere in the Magic Kingdom.
Yeah. I want to go to Club 33.
Oh. Wait, is there one in Magic Kingdom now?
Aren't they building one? Oh, maybe it's not open yet.
Maybe not in your dreams. The Club 33 in your dreams.
Okay, well, since that's not open yet, you know what, Patrick? I don't. I'm a simple person of the people.
Sure. I say that about you all the time.
Right. I'm going to go to Casey's Corner.
Oh, you are simple. Great. I like it. Well done.
I'm going to get some corn dog nuggets.
You better get some corn dog nuggets.
Get some corn dog nuggets and some French fries.
I'm into the spicy noodles at Skipper Canteen. Good.
I don't know if I've had this. I do love Skipper Canteen a whole bunch. Yeah. Okay, what's next? What's next on our one only?
I'm sorry, you can't sit with us, JT, because you're at Casey's Corner. The next one is you can only have one snack. What's your snack?
Oh, well, it's the Mickey ice cream bar.
Is it?
Yeah.
I guess it depends on if is it cold out, is it warm out? I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't. It does not matter. Get away from me. Popcorn for me. It's just my.
Oh yeah, of course.
Any
And
time
you know
of
what?
day.
If it's cold out, that just means my Mickey bar is not going to melt in my hands. So.
Such a good point. So logical. Okay. You can only use one restroom. What restroom are you using in the Magic Kingdom, JT?
You know what? I don't actually love any of the Magic Kingdom restrooms.
Same.
They all feel like just one big baby changing table.
Correct. Yeah, correct. I guess I would use the newest one, which would be the Tron roller coaster restroom.
Oh, you
It's
know
probably
what?
the
I've never
cleanest
used
one.
those, but because they're new and probably the cleanest and the most modern, we'll go with that.
Let's go with that one. Okay, we're going with Tron restrooms. Only the important topics here on Games Do the D. You can only buy one item of merchandise. What are you going to buy?
Ooh, what am I going to buy? The sky's the limit there.
One piece of merchandise. But
Okay.
you have to buy it, I guess. So you are paying for it. But
Well, yeah. I'm going to go to Uptown Jewelers and buy a really nice watch.
you shot for the moon. I like that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why not?
Right. Why?
I only get one, so I might as well put all my money in it.
You're not wrong. You know what? I'm going to go to that. Is that where's the glass blowing place?
Same, like in the same area.
Same
yeah.
area. I'm going to go get myself a piece of hand blown glass in
Oh, I
Disney.
love that.
'Cause they're beautiful, but they're expensive. I'm never like, and plus I'm always going to break it. I feel like as soon as I buy it, I'm going to drop it.
Yeah. But you know what?
On this dream day, I get to keep it.
Anything's possible.
Anything is possible. Speaking of, who are you taking with you?
Oh gosh. Well, not. Oh.
Not
Not
say my
you.
name. Well, not you. Obviously not you.
Not you. I mean, you know what? Oh, you know who I'm taking? I'm taking my new friend Ken Bruce.
That would be fun. Can I go with?
Right? Yeah. Well, no, because it's only one person.
Oh, okay. Then I'm bringing Brad Bird as well.
Oh, we can all meet up.
Well, you already said you can't sit with me.
That's true.
so-
That will do it for this episode of Gays Do the D. Thanks for listening. Ratings and reviews are greatly appreciated and help people find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher. To become a patron of the podcast, visit our website at gaysdothed.com/donate. For a donation of any amount, you can receive exclusive Gays Do the D content and help us continue to bring you the very best Disney news and discussion. You can continue the conversation after this episode on Instagram at GDTD Podcast and submit your questions or show ideas to info@gaysdothed.com. Have a great week, everybody. See you real soon. Have you had the DTR yet? That's what we want to know.